Hi, and welcome to the channel, where silence speaks louder than screams, and every twist unravels a secret they never saw coming. If you've ever felt invisible in your own home, if you've ever loved someone who only noticed your absence, not your presence, then you're in the right place. This is where raw emotions meet unforgettable stories of betrayal, resilience, and silent revenge. The stories you'll hear here aren't just drama, they are confessions wrapped in truth. They reveal what happens when the overlooked stop waiting and start walking away. You won't find cliches here, only real echoes of heartbreak, revelation, and justice born in silence. My name isn't important. What matters is that you feel seen. So if you're ready to uncover what really goes on behind closed doors, hit subscribe, turn on the notifications, and join a community that understands what it means to reclaim power, one quiet ending at a time. Yes, they wounded you, but wounds are where God often writes his greatest testimony. What tried to destroy you only uncovered what God already deposited inside you. You are not broken beyond repair. You are broken open for elevation. You see, we often think that when we've been broken, when we've been mistreated, misunderstood, or misused, that it marks the end of our value. We think we've been disqualified. But I came to tell you today that the very thing that broke you may be the thing that blessed you. That heartbreak didn't cancel your calling. It confirmed it. The rejection didn't stop your purpose. It started it. Because in the kingdom of God, brokenness is not the end. It is often the beginning of a greater work. God does not throw away broken people. He rebuilds them stronger. We serve a God who specializes in using the wounded to bring healing, the overlooked to lead nations, the rejected to carry redemption. And if you've been through something that shattered your confidence, shook your identity, or left you asking, "Why me?" understand this: God doesn't allow pain without a purpose. He doesn't allow breaking unless he's preparing to build. And what you thought was going to kill you is what he will use to crown you. When Jesus appeared to his disciples after the resurrection, he didn't hide his wounds. He showed them. His scars were not shameful. They were evidence of the price he paid and the power he carried. And just like him, your wounds are not the end of your story. They are the evidence of your survival, your resilience, and your coming promotion. The wound wasn't your weakness. It was the proof of your process. See, when the enemy came against you, he didn't realize he was activating a deeper level of your anointing. The betrayal wasn't just an emotional blow. It was a spiritual unlock. The disappointment didn't disqualify you. It was divine setup. You were not broken to stay broken. You were broken to be opened, and God can only fill what has been opened. He pours oil into the cracks. He releases power through the fractures. You've been broken, yes, but that brokenness made space for something holy to enter in. And maybe that's why you cried the way you cried. Maybe that's why you couldn't sleep, why you were stuck in that place longer than you expected. Because God was doing something deep in you. He was not trying to hurt you. He was preparing to elevate you. But to elevate you, he had to excavate the pain. He had to reach down beneath the surface and pull up everything that was limiting the divine potential in you. The attack wasn't proof that you were weak. It was proof that you were carrying something weighty. The enemy doesn't attack what isn't a threat and what they did to you, what they said about you, what they took from you. It may have broken you in the moment, but it built something eternal in you. It built patience. It built depth. It built discernment. It built a testimony that somebody else will need. You had to be broken so that someone else could see what restoration looks like. You don't rise by accident. You rise because the fire didn't consume you. You rise because the storm didn't drown you. You rise because the pit didn't stop the promise. And maybe God didn't prevent the pain. Because he planned to use it, you didn't survive just for survival's sake. You survived because there's purpose attached to your name. You made it through because God is not finished with you. And this next season of your life is not about the pain they caused. It's about the platform God is giving you because you endured. You are not too damaged. You are not too late. You are not forgotten. You are being forged. God is shaping you with fire. He is stretching you through loss. He is maturing you with silence. He is speaking in the wound. He is writing His name in the very place where you bled. And what you thought was your breaking point is about to become your breakthrough. Don't run from the wound. Bring it to the one who still has nail prints in his hands. Bring it to the one who was pierced but not defeated. Bring it to the one who rose with power. If He could overcome death, He can restore your life. If He could conquer the grave, He can lift you out of the depression, the anxiety, the shame, and the confusion. You are not finished. You are being formed. God never wastes pain. He never overlooks the faithful. He never forgets His promises, and He never leaves you in the fire without forming something in the flames. They meant to wound you, but God is using the wound to wake you. Wake you to the strength you didn't know you had. Wake you to the calling you didn't know was waiting. Wake you to the truth that you are chosen, called, and carried. So yes, you were wounded. Yes, it hurt. Yes, it changed you, but it didn't end you. And now, God is about to elevate you, because elevation always follows endurance. The betrayal wasn't meant to break you. It was meant to build you. Don't curse the process that positioned you. Your tears are not wasted. They're watering the soil for your next level. There are some wounds that come not from strangers, but from the people you trusted most, the ones you gave your time to, your energy, your loyalty. And when they turned their back on you, when they walked away, when they lied on your name or used you in your weakest moment, it didn't just hurt your feelings, it shook your foundation, because betrayal doesn't hit the surface. It cuts to the soul, but I came to remind you today, just because they betrayed you doesn't mean you're broken. You were being built. God never allows a wound without working a wonder. He never permits pain without producing purpose. The betrayal didn't catch Him off guard. In fact, He may have allowed it, not to destroy you, but to develop you. Because sometimes the only way God can move you into your next season is to allow someone to push you out of your last one. And when the betrayal came, when the abandonment hit, when the people you thought would ride with you suddenly disappeared, God was still in control. Joseph stood in front of his brothers who had thrown him into a pit, sold him into slavery, lied about his death, and said something only a person who had been processed could say. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. That wasn't weakness. That was wisdom. That was the revelation that even betrayal bows before the sovereignty of God. Even betrayal becomes a tool in the hands of a faithful God. And when Joseph cried in that moment, they weren't just tears of pain. They were tears that had watered years of waiting, years of silence, years of isolation, and now he stood not as the boy who was broken, but as the man who was built. You can't curse the process that positioned you. Don't despise the journey that made you kneel, that forced you to pray when no one else could help you, that made you turn off the noise and hear God's whisper in the dark. Because sometimes it's in the silence of betrayal that God teaches you who you really are. You're not who they said you were. You're not what they did to you. You are becoming who God always knew you would be, and they didn't see it because it wasn't their vision to carry. It was God's. Some of you have been carrying bitterness, waiting for an apology that never came, waiting for the people who hurt you to acknowledge what they did. But hear this clearly. You don't need their apology to step into your destiny. You don't need their permission to rise, because what they tried to block, God has already blessed. What they tried to delay, God has ordained. And sometimes God will allow them to walk away, not because He's punishing you, but because He's preserving you. He's protecting what He planted inside of you. Those tears you cried in private, they watered something sacred. Those moments you questioned your worth, your calling, your direction, those were the very moments God was reaching deeper into your spirit, digging wells that would hold greater capacity, teaching your heart how to survive when applause stops and only purpose remains. That betrayal didn't break you, it stripped you, it peeled away the false attachments. It removed the voices that would have limited your growth, and now you are standing, maybe scarred, maybe still healing, but stronger, wiser, closer to God than you've ever been. It's not about revenge. It's about release, because when you release what wounded you, God releases what will elevate you. And if you keep your heart clean, your spirit humble, and your faith steady, no betrayal can block what God has already written in your future. You weren't left behind, you were set apart, you weren't cast out, you were called up, and every tear you shed was counted. Every sigh, every night you cried yourself to sleep, every moment you felt unseen, it was never wasted. God bottles tears, and what you weep over, He works on. Don't let betrayal define you. Let it refine you. Let it push you to pray deeper, love purer, discern sharper. Let it make you more like Christ, who was betrayed with a kiss, yet still walked to the cross. He didn't let the wound stop the work, and neither will you, because what's in you is greater than what left you. What's before you is bigger than what tried to break you. God never asked you to understand the betrayal. He asked you to trust the builder. Trust the one who sees the end from the beginning. Trust the one who knows how to turn the betrayal into breakthrough, who knows how to use pain as a platform, who knows how to raise you up out of pits and prisons and sit you in places you never imagined. So know your tears were not in vain. They were watering something greater. And what's about to grow out of your ground is nothing less than glory, because when betrayal comes, elevation is not far behind. You were not rejected, you were redirected. Every door that slammed in your face was God's protection in disguise. He's not just saving you, He's setting you apart for something higher. Too often we misinterpret rejection as failure, when in truth it's divine intervention. We think when someone walks away, when we don't get the opportunity we prayed for, or when the relationship falls apart, it's because we weren't good enough. But you need to understand, God doesn't allow rejection to define you. He allows it to refine you. That closed door wasn't punishment, it was protection. It didn't shut to stop your growth, it shut to shift your direction, because sometimes what we think we want is far less than what God is preparing. God sees what you don't see. He hears the conversations you're not in. He knows the true condition of places, people, and plans that your heart has grown attached to. So when He allows a door to close, it's not because you're unworthy, it's because He's working. And His work often begins in the places where we feel the most confused, the most rejected, the most unseen. But rejection isn't the end of the story. It's the start of a new chapter, a better one, a higher one. Sometimes God has to break your heart to keep your destiny intact. Because if you had stayed where you were, if you had settled in that place with those people, under that limited vision, you would have missed the greater He had for you. Rejection removes what your future cannot carry, and when God says no, it's not a failure, it's a favor. You prayed for open doors, but didn't realize that closed ones are answers too. There's something sacred in the slam of a door. It's abrupt, it's jarring, it's loud, but it leaves no confusion. When God closes it, no man can open it, and that rejection was His way of making sure you wouldn't stay somewhere beneath your calling. It wasn't them pushing you out, it was Him pulling you up. He wasn't denying you access. He was redirecting your steps, because your steps are ordered, and when your steps are ordered, your rejections are orchestrated. Think about the places you wanted to be, the people you longed to be accepted by, the moments you thought were the key to your future. Now look at where God brought you instead. It may not have made sense in the moment, but when you look back, you'll see it was grace that kept you out. It was mercy that rerouted you. It was love that let it go, because God didn't just want to bless you. He wanted to protect what He was building in you. You weren't forgotten. You were preserved. You weren't discarded. You were disconnected from what couldn't carry you where God is calling you to go. You weren't left behind. You were held back so you could rise up at the right time. That time is not determined by your feelings or your frustration. It's determined by the hand of the one who sees the full picture, and that's the beauty of God's plan. It often unfolds through redirection. Moses wasn't rejected in Egypt. He was redirected to the desert so he could meet God on holy ground. Joseph wasn't rejected by his brothers. He was redirected to Egypt so he could save a nation. David wasn't rejected when Saul chased him. He was redirected to the cave where God shaped his character into that of a king. Jesus wasn't rejected by men for no reason. He was lifted up in rejection to fulfill the redemption of the world. And if God could do it with them, He can do it with you. Don't let a closed door convince you that your journey is over. Don't let a no make you question your worth. God's redirections are not signs of your insignificance. They are proof of your significance. He doesn't redirect people He's not invested in. He doesn't block paths unless there's a better road. And He doesn't silence what He doesn't plan to speak into again. There are some delays in your life that were not demonic. They were divine. Some exits were not accidents. They were extractions. God was pulling you away from attachments that looked good but had no godly foundation. He was cutting cords to relationships that fed your emotions but starved your purpose. That's not rejection. That's wisdom. That's grace doing the hard work of making room for your next season. You don't need to beg for what God has released you from. You don't need to chase what chose to leave. The same God who allowed the door to close is the God who holds the keys to new doors. He doesn't close one without opening another, and the one He's opening next. It won't require you to shrink to fit in. It won't demand that you compromise your calling. It will meet you at your level of obedience and lift you into alignment. There's nothing accidental about your journey. That rejection is part of the testimony. That no was full of purpose. That unanswered prayer, it was full of God's protection. And though it hurt, and though it left you confused, it did not leave you uncovered. God never abandoned you in the redirection. He walked with you through every step, quietly removing obstacles, gently closing doors, faithfully preparing what eyes have not seen. So walk forward with boldness. Walk forward knowing that what looked like rejection was actually revelation. The revelation that God's love is not always found in the yes, but often in the no. That He saves you not just from sin, but from settling. That He sets you apart not just for distance, but for destiny. You were not rejected. You were redirected. Pain has a way of introducing you to power. God is not punishing you. He's preparing you. You don't rise after applause. You rise after the breaking. The oil only flows after the press. There are moments in life that crush you, not because you did something wrong, but because God is trying to draw something deeper out of you. It wasn't your failure. It was your formation. The pain you're feeling is not abandonment. It's alignment. Heaven is not ignoring you. Heaven is shaping you, because God doesn't produce power through comfort. He produces it through pressure, and the breaking you're experiencing is not the end. It's the beginning of something sacred. You've been praying for God to elevate you, to use you, to pour out His anointing. But the oil only flows after the olive has been crushed. The fragrance is released when the flower has been bruised. And your gift, your calling, your purpose, it does not emerge from applause. It emerges from adversity. From nights of weeping, from days of silence, from battles no one saw you fight. God is not punishing you. He is preparing you for something greater than you can see. When you go through pain, you meet a version of yourself that never had to show up before. You begin to dig deeper, you pray harder, you see more clearly, because pain strips away the surface, it strips away the convenience, and it brings you face with your capacity. You thought you were done. You thought it was over, but pain brought you to the threshold of power, not the power that impresses, but the power that endures, the power that prays through tears, the power that worships without answers. The power that stands when everything around you tells you to sit down and give up. God never wastes pain. He multiplies it. He molds it. He makes something eternal from something that felt unbearable. And what you think is breaking you apart is actually pulling you together. It's revealing the strength He already deposited in you. You don't rise because the crowd believes in you. You rise because the fire didn't consume you. You rise because you found power in the pressing place. The pressing place is not pretty. It doesn't come with applause. It comes with groaning. It comes with silence. But it's in that place, when nobody sees you, when nothing makes sense, when the weight feels too heavy, that the Spirit begins to stretch you. That's where you get your oil. That's where you find your voice. That's where you hear God without the noise of your own comfort. We are too quick to run from the pain, too quick to escape the pressure, but the promise is in the press. God never anoints what hasn't been crushed. He never releases what hasn't been purified. And if you're feeling pressed right now, if your back is against the wall, if your emotions are unraveling, if your faith feels thin, don't pull away, lean in. Because something is forming in you that no easy season could ever produce. The oil that flows from your life will not come from theory. It will come from your testimony. It will come from what you survived, from what you wept over, from what you surrendered when you had no choice but to trust. People may see the fruit, but they won't understand the furnace. They'll admire your strength, but they won't know the nights you cried into a pillow asking God to take the cup from your hand. Jesus said in the garden, "If it be possible, let this cup pass from me." He was not afraid of death. He was wrestling with the weight, and yet He submitted. "Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done." That's where the oil began to flow, not at the cross, but in the garden. Not on the stage, but in the struggle. And the same is true for you. The anointing on your life is not the result of ease. It's the residue of pain transformed into purpose. So if you're being pressed, it's because God is getting ready to pour. If you're being broken, it's because God is building something better. You asked for power. You asked for growth. You asked for destiny. Now comes the process, and the process is not punishment. It's preparation. It's proof that you are chosen, that you are not ordinary, that your life is carrying weight in the Spirit that the enemy tried to abort through disappointment and delay. The devil doesn't fight the powerless. He fights those who are pregnant with purpose, and that pain you're feeling is the contraction before the birthing. Don't misread the pressure. Don't mislabel the pain. What feels like the end is just the push before the release. God is not removing you from the press. He's bringing the oil through it, because it's the pressing that reveals what you were really made of. The applause will fade, the titles will shift, but the oil will remain. The oil will carry you through storms. The oil will open doors no man can shut. The oil will distinguish you when everything else falls silent. And that oil only comes when you've been broken enough to let go, crushed enough to trust, and faithful enough to stay planted when it would have been easier to walk away. You don't rise after applause. You rise after the breaking, and right now, if you're breaking, if you're being pressed, if you're asking God why it's not the end, it's the place where power begins, because the oil only flows after the press. When people break you, God remakes you, and what He remakes, no man can undo. They tried to bury your purpose, but forgot that seeds don't die in the dirt. They grow in it. There are moments in life when you feel shattered, when someone's words cut deep, when their actions wound you in places nobody sees, when the betrayal feels like the final blow. But I came to remind you today that what broke you didn't break God's plan. In fact, what they used to break you, God is using to remake you, because God does His best work in broken places. He takes the pieces men throw away and shapes them into something they can't explain. People may walk away, people may hurt you, people may speak against you, but people don't hold the blueprint of your destiny. God does, and when God reaches into your brokenness, He doesn't put you back together the same way. He reshapes you into someone who's stronger, wiser, more rooted in purpose. That break wasn't the end. It was the beginning of your transformation, because God doesn't just repair, He rebuilds. See, when man discards you, God sets you apart. When man says you're too far gone, God says you're just getting started. And what He builds in the dark places of your pain, He reveals in the light of His purpose. You might have felt crushed, but that crushing was not to destroy you. It was to awaken the oil inside of you. There's something sacred in what you went through. There's something holy in the dirt that covered you. They thought they were ending you, but they were planting you. A seed must go into the ground before it grows. It must be hidden, pressed beneath the surface, buried under weight and darkness. And for a time, it looks like nothing's happening. To the outside world, you seem forgotten. But underground, something is shifting. The soil is working. The roots are spreading. And at just the right time, after the waiting, after the silence, after the pressing, a sprout pushes through. That's how God works. He develops you in the dirt before He displays you in the light. So don't curse the burial. Don't despise the dark season. That was not a grave. It was a garden. They didn't bury you. They planted you. And what God is bringing forth from your life is going to bear fruit in ways they never imagined. You are not a victim of what they did to you. You are a vessel of what God is doing through you. They tried to cancel your calling, but God confirmed it. They tried to silence your voice, but God strengthened it. They tried to break you down, but God was building you up. And what He remakes, no man can undo. They may not recognize who you've become, and that's all right. Because you don't need their recognition when you've already received God's restoration. You don't need their validation when you're walking in divine vindication. You don't need the crowd when the Creator has laid His hands on you. Their rejection was never stronger than His redirection. Their betrayal was never greater than His blessing. And their attempt to bury your identity only made way for your becoming. There's a strength inside of you that didn't come from success. It came from suffering. It came from being overlooked and underestimated. It came from being walked on and left out. It came from nights you cried alone, wondering if you'd ever feel whole again. And in those nights, God was working. In that pain, God was preparing, because He knew what was coming. He knew you needed roots before you could rise. And now that the roots have gone deep, the growth is unstoppable. What you carry is not common. That's why the breaking had to be uncommon. That's why the trials came heavy. That's why the silence lasted long. Because the greater the calling, the deeper the crushing. But here's the truth. They thought they were ending your story. They didn't realize they were turning the page. They didn't know that God was just getting started. And when God starts a good work, He finishes it. When He marks a life with purpose, nothing and no one can erase it. You are not who you were before the breaking. You are stronger now, more discerning, more anchored in truth. You don't flinch the way you used to. You don't fold under pressure, because now you know who's holding you. And even when everything around you seems uncertain, even when people fail you, God stays. God restores, God remakes, and what He touches, He transforms. So don't be afraid of being broken. Don't be ashamed of what you've come through. Those cracks are where the light shines through. Those scars are where the oil begins to flow. And what grew out of your brokenness will feed others. It will bless others. It will remind the world that resurrection doesn't begin at the mountaintop. It begins in the graveyard. They tried to bury you, but God knew you were a seed. Stop asking why they hurt you, and start asking what God is growing through you. This pain has a purpose. This pressure is producing power, and this valley, it's just your path to victory. Some wounds will never make sense if you stare at them from the place of pain. But when you shift your posture, when you stop asking, why did they do this to me, and start asking, what is God doing in me, that's when healing begins. That's when vision returns. That's when purpose starts rising out of your brokenness. Because God does not allow pain without planting something in it. He doesn't allow pressure without pressing something out of it. There is a harvest hidden in the hurt, but you have to change the question to see it. You've been carrying the weight of that pain for so long, carrying the echo of their words, the sting of their betrayal, the silence of their absence. But you're still here, you're still breathing, and if you're still here, that means purpose is still alive in you. God is still working, even in the heartbreak, even in the silence, even in the confusion. That wound you've been trying to understand, that may be the very place where God wants to grow your greatest testimony. We spend so much time trying to figure out why they left, why they betrayed us, why they changed, why they said what they said. But the truth is, the why won't heal you, the why won't move you forward, and the why may never be answered, but there's a what that will. What is God growing through this? What is God developing in the dark? What is He building beneath the surface while I'm sitting here wondering why? You were not forgotten. You were being formed. You were not abandoned. You were being assigned, and the assignment requires pain, not because God delights in your suffering, but because He sees the outcome beyond it. He knows the weight you're going to carry. He knows the souls you'll touch. He knows the doors you'll walk through, and He knows that kind of assignment requires roots, deep ones, and roots don't grow in the light. They grow underground. They grow in the dark. They grow in pressure. That's where stability is formed. That's where power is born. This pressure you feel is not evidence of God's absence. It's evidence of God's process. He's pulling out of you what couldn't come in comfort. He's unlocking something in you that complacency could never reach. He's turning your pain into power, not the kind of power that shows off, but the kind of power that stands firm, that endures, that intercedes, that walks through the fire and comes out not even smelling like smoke. You've been asking for victory, but didn't know it would come through the valley, because the valley is where warriors are made. The valley is where God trains your hands to fight and your heart to trust. The mountaintop is a result, but the valley is the classroom. That's where endurance is born. That's where character is refined. That's where you learn to walk by faith, not by sight. And that's where you are right now, in the valley, in the in-between, in the middle of the process. But I came to tell you that this valley is not permanent. It's not your end, it's your passage. You're walking through it, not staying in it. God is with you in it. You may not feel Him, you may not hear Him, but He's there, guiding, shielding, preparing, and He's not just getting you through. He's getting something in you. He's establishing a power in your spirit that suffering alone can produce. The pain you feel is not the proof of your weakness. It's the signal that your next level is closer than it looks, that something is breaking forth. That pressure is not pointless. That ache is not empty. God is birthing something through it, and what He's birthing in you will outlive the moment that hurt you. That's why you can't give up now. That's why you can't stop in the middle. There's too much coming through this pain to bow to it. The enemy thought that what they did would break you, but he didn't realize that pain pushes purpose to the surface. What they meant for evil, God is bending for good. What they tried to kill, God is resurrecting. And this time, when you rise, you won't rise the same. You won't rise needing their affirmation. You won't rise seeking their attention. You'll rise with clarity, with a deeper faith, with unshakable power, not because you avoided the pain, but because you grew through it. God never allows what He will not redeem. Never forget that. He never wastes pain. He uses it. He transforms it, and He will take the very thing that wounded you and make it the platform of your healing. He will use the very voices that cursed you as proof that His hand was on your life the whole time. He will turn your breakdown into a breakthrough, your scars into strength, your questions into wisdom. But it starts when you change the question. Stop asking why they hurt you, and start asking what God is growing through you. Because there is something growing, something beautiful, something holy, something strong, and the deeper the pain, the stronger the power. This valley is not your ending, it's your passage to victory. Until next time, walk boldly, pray deeply, and remember, God doesn't waste pain. He transforms it,